All right. So, so here we are hearing from the Srimad Bhagavatam. So this is from a period, a very long time ago. This is in the generation of Dhruva Maharaj. As we've discussed before, Dhruva Maharaj is the cousin brother of Maharaj Agnidra. So his father's Uttanapad, and Uttanapad is the brother of Maharaj Agnidra's father, Priyavrata. And they are coming in the third generation of living entities. So the first generation is Lord Brahma, then came their grandfather, Swayambhuva Manu, and then their fathers, Uttanapad and Priyavrata, and now it's the generation of Agnidra. So this is a very long time ago. So according to astrological calculation, Lord Brahma is about 52 years old, and his entire lifespan is 311 trillion plus years. And so that gives you over 157 trillion years in terms of the age of this universe. So this is a very long time ago where the glories of raw milk are actually being spoken about. So, and even till to this day as well, raw milk remains as the still the most nutritious whole food. And so that's why cows, the existence of humans and cows go hand in hand. They always been there. So where you find humans, you'll find cows. So if you look at the nutrient profile of milk, 1 cup of milk will give you 30% of your daily value for calcium, 30% of your vitamin D. So that is from the sun, but the cows naturally synthesize that into this precious milk. 25% of phosphorus, 25% of riboflavin, 20% of B12, 16% of protein, 10% of potassium, and 10% of vitamin A. So these are the long chain macronutrients and micronutrients that the cows synthesize. They pack into this precious commodity. And this actually is needed for building out a strong body. Excuse me. So here we're hearing how Purvachiti supplied this milk from her own body, which is a celestial body, celestial female body. And the end result was that she actually produced kings. So from her body, they were administrators. So 9 administrators of the Jambudvipa solar system. Now here you are seeing a reference to Jambudvipa being a model of the earth. But as we heard from Brahmatirtha Prabhu, there's different interpretations depending on what you're trying to explain. So Prabhupada, he references Asia and Europe. And so he's referencing the model where Jambudvipa is the model for the earth. So I just want to look into the book by Sariputta Prabhu, Mysteries of the Sacred Universe. And there he talks about the different, the different sections of Jambudvipa. So these are the 9 varshas. Okay. Can everybody still hear me? Okay, I think so. These are the 9 varshas, or the countries of Jambudvipa, the different sections of Jambudvipa. So there's Ilavrita Varsha, Bhadrasha Varsha, Harivarsha, Ketumala Varsha, Ramyaka, Hiranmaya, Uttarakuru, Kimpurusha, Bharata Varsha. So Bharata Varsha, as we know, is the part of India. So it's just, you won't be able to see it exactly because I don't have a PDF. But basically, the model, the Earth model, it looks something like that. You won't be able to make it out. Anyway, I'll share it on the group chat, a picture. But essentially what you have is, in the middle, there's Meru. And then there's, this is the column mountain that sticks out. And it's the axis of the universe. And then these different sections, the different sons of Maharaj Agnidra, they actually ruled. And they established different deities. So this will be discussed further in chapters 17, 18, and 19. And so there's different presiding deities that these administrators, helped to establish. Yeah. So in order to actually be a ruler of a competent ruler, you need resources. And one resource, the first resource, is your own body. So here, Prabhupada in the purport, he talks about how if the woman, because women are primarily the carriers of culture, in other words, they are the future from their bodies which can actually give shelter for other bodies are produced, namely competent administrators. Now, if women get polluted, then their actual ability and their competence in actually producing other bodies that can give shelter to other bodies becomes heavily compromised. So one of which is the ability to actually synthesize high quality milk. So we are seeing, for example, in the case of cows, so by the cows being mistreated, the actual quality of the milk actually deteriorates. That's available to mainstream society. And we have an expert in our community, His Grace Purushottam Kshetra Prabhu, who's researched this topic and discusses it. So, for example, if the cows aren't being properly cared for, then the quality, the nutrient profile of the milk actually deteriorates. So there's one fatty acid called docosahexaenoic acid, or DHA, and this DHA, as researched and informed by Purushottam Kshetra Prabhu, he's given quite a few presentations on this. It's very enlightening and very fascinating. But essentially, this docosahexaenoic acid accumulates on the tips of grasses. And so pasture-fed cows, they produce the highest quality milk, because this docosahexaenoic acid, it forms about 40% of your cerebral cortex. This is the main computational hub of your brain. And so cows that aren't fed primarily on grass, but more on just feed, which is called TMR. So like corn, dry corn, corn silage, etc. The quality of the milk is lower because it has lower this docosahexaenoic acid. And also in terms of the secondly, we see that there's also types of milk called A1, A2 milk. Now, in a society where it's all about the volume of production, then in Kali Yuga, you have the predominance of a genetically modified cow, the Holstein cow, and its characteristic has the characteristic that's been genetically modified in it is to produce higher protein milk, because the more protein there is, the more volume. So they produce more. And so as a result of that, there's been a distortion in the natural synthesis of those long chain molecules. And then secondly, is that how the cows are treated as well. You know, they stay indoors year round. You know, they may get some brands which advertise themselves as being organic and pasture fed. They just put them out to pasture for like 1 hour or so. So the bulk of their diet is not really on grass, natural grass, but it's actually on feed, and mostly this corn feed, which the content of the DHA is not as high as grasses like alfalfa and Sudan, etc. So as a result, what I just read in terms of whole milk, those macro and micronutrients, you don't actually get those micronutrients. And so the quality of the bodies being built is actually very low. And so as a result, the administrators, they subsist on this milk, if they're lucky. And then if they're not, then the mothers themselves, they actually, you know, just give the babies baby formula, which is dry milk in the form of milk powder, and they mix it. And so the mothers themselves, if they, you know, aren't part of the traditional care economy that we knew of, which was mothers generally would stay at home to actually head up the enterprise of raising children, raising future administrators of the community and the society, and also to head up their education as well, and to give these children protection and to protection from the dangers that actually lurk in society in general, and that we see today, the primary dangers being on the public internet. You know, so this is a great enterprise, and as you know, if you ask any parent, they'll tell you that as the children get older, it actually becomes more and more you have to be more and more particular. It requires more and more energy to actually give children adequate protection so that they grow properly. And so as a result of this, what ends up happening is that the bodies of the future administrators, they haven't been built from high quality milk. They haven't been given due attention from their mothers, because mostly, at least, you know, well, I don't know what the stats are here in the US, but in the rest of the world, for the most part, mothers still have affection for their children, still natural. And so the neglect, it's not so much like due to mental health that the mothers, you know, have their mental health is just disturbed, but it's just that they have to work and take care of the children. They've been abandoned by the, you know, the fathers of their children, or the fathers they're not producing enough financial resources so that she can actually focus on this, a very important enterprise of taking care of the children. And so as a result, the administrators, they're not to the potential, to their full potential. So even if they had a natural proclivity to actually rule and give protection, their health is compromised. Like, for example, one senator of the state, he's of the state of Pennsylvania, he was checked into, I think, yeah, he was campaigning last year, then he had a heart attack, and they were pushing him, he should just carry on, and so his speech was compromised. And then after he won the race, then soon after that, he was checked into a clinic, hospital for depression and anxiety. And then his wife, with three of his children, she goes to Brazil because she said she can't take it. So she wanted a break for herself and her children. So she leaves her husband in a hospital in Pennsylvania to actually take a vacation and leave her husband. So this kind of thing is actually happening. So him trying to be an administrator, obviously, when you look at his record, he's really not he doesn't have the abilities that we hear of in Bhagavatam in terms of being a administrator. But in any case, he's in the post, but still he's compromised. His mental health is compromised, and also his support system as well is compromised. So that's one example. But a lot of the administrators, even if they don't have malice, they're just compromised. They are not protected from all sides. Yes. And so basically a compromise in the quality of milk that's available in society. Really, we can see that it compromises the very fiber of society. So having a strong built body, it's not just a physical strong built body, but also, as I've cited evidence, this docosahexaenoic acid, even in your ability, the quality of your sense perception. So as we know, there's we have three faculties of knowing what we know. There's pratyaksha, which is information gathered by our physical senses, so seeing, tasting, touching, etc. So having a strong body means that your sense of seeing, you don't have to wear glasses. I don't know if any of you have seen a painting of the different emperors of the world and kshatriyas wearing glasses. Has anyone seen that? Yeah, I've never seen it. So these guys can see. And so there's no question of being able to win a battle, an archery battle, of wearing glasses. There's no question. Yeah, you just won't be able to win. So these guys, their sense of eyesight is very strong. And yeah, there's an example, of Arjuna as well, proving his sense of eyesight in winning Draupadi, so at the challenge, the challenge in winning Draupadi's hand was that they had to be able to see the reflection, to pierce a fish through the reflection of water. And so, yeah, it was actually very difficult. Stringing the bow itself was very difficult. What to speak of actually piercing this very small target. But they were able to do that. Yeah. So sense perception, okay, now one could argue is that no, we have telescopes, we have we have technologies to assist us. Why does our senator of PA or the governor of PA actually needs good eyesight? I mean, our governor, he wears glasses. Sorry, I'm not picking on people who wear glasses, but I'm just trying to make a point. So one could say, well, we don't need all this, but actually, in the world of deep fakes, it's actually becoming your sense of sight in terms of its quality, how good it is. It's becoming important to actually be able to tell what is real from fake. So a deep fake, as some of you may know, it's using artificial intelligence to, for example, take my face, have an actor say something that I never said. So this video is going to be available on YouTube, and then they can just, put my face on that actor's face. So this is leading, this kind of thing is creating quite a lot of scandals. So you need to be able to actually, just from ordinary sense perception, differentiate between what's real and what's not real. Yeah. Of course, the sense of sight is just dull. It's being processed through the mind, and that's the second level of sense perception, or at least integration of physical sense perception, and that is this anuman. And so the mind leverages the brain in terms of the quality of information. So if you put in bad information, so from a weak body, which doesn't have a strong sense of seeing, tasting, touching. So all this is very important. Like if your senses aren't strong enough, then, for example, you just won't get satisfaction from your food. So you'll just eat all sorts of things because your sense of taste, for example, can't differentiate, between things that, aren't like good for you, but you just eat them anyway. But if you have refined sense of taste, then we can even see it with the devotees. Immediately, like say, you're on the road and then, you bought some snacks, you thought you read the label, but you taste it and you're like, what is this? And then you read the label again, and then you see, oh, it has onions and garlic immediately, because your sense of taste kicked in. This is like, okay, it's not supposed to taste like this. But for somebody whose sense of taste, that barrier of protection to actually take in and not take in things that are not take in things that are unfavorable, then it just gets in. And as Krishna explains in the 17th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Divisions of Faith, the quality of inputs through this pratyaksha affects the modes of nature that you're in. So the kind of food you eat, what you worship, so this is what you do with your hands, the kind of charity you give with your hands, how you move. So all the knowledge acquiring senses, and also all the experience that you get from the executive senses, all these get integrated into the mind, into Anuman, and then they affect the quality of the mode of nature that your mind is in. So as discerning individuals, persons whose bodies have been built by high quality milk or high quality prasadam, then you basically can control that. You have full control over that, at least to a large extent. And so then the quality of your decisions, so the mind then as an integrator of information then presents to the intelligence, which is a differentiator. It says, okay, is this good? Isn't it bad? And it can only differentiate based on what's it's been presented. And so then you need to go then a step higher, is that if you're in the mode of ignorance, if these inputs, the quality of these inputs have been in mode of passion and ignorance, then your leveraging of the other important layer of evidence in terms of knowing what you're knowing and making good decisions, you don't really have an attraction for it because you're in the mode of ignorance. You get influenced by the mode of ignorance, which is devoid of knowledge. And so you don't leverage the shruti. This is your authority or knowing what you're knowing based on what you hear. And so this is very important because for the intelligence to actually function properly, it mostly leverages information that's been heard. So unlike the other senses in terms of how it affects Anuman, the ear, this source of information, the ear, it can affect the intelligence directly. So it gets integrated into the mind, but you can hear something really wonderful that Krishna is a supreme personality of Godhead, and from his body, great administrators of Jambudvip were produced, and they were raised on the breast milk of a demigoddess, Purvachiti. And if a demigoddess, this was her method of raising children 152 trillion years ago, then why shouldn't it be relevant for humans to do it now if you want to create high quality sons? These were rulers that ruled for a long time. So in the same way as well, on a high level, is that we know that there's the mother, the Vedas are compared to the mother, and then the father is compared to the spiritual master. And so what comes out the mother, it builds out our body very nicely. And then what affects our decision making as well. So both have an effect, as I've described. And then the shruti, hearing from authority. In other words, this comparison of words from the spiritual master as being nectar, it's actually very appropriate. Just as raw milk coming from nourishing the body of the worshipper and a future administrator, a future intellectual, as also being an essential ingredient. It's a liquid and it's also nectar. Similarly here as well, symbolically, the words from the spiritual master are also nectar, because in terms of the nourishment that they give you, they nourish your actual soul. Whereas the Vedas, they can nourish all your other faculties, right? And then the spiritual master synthesizes those instructions and gives you precise dosages for your spiritual advancement. And so it's really important that we consider what the Bhagavatam is actually saying. So here, that mothers need to be allowed to be mothers. They need to be given full facility to actually raise children. If they're not, and they have to, protect themselves and be independent because there's just so many threats on their existence and their womanhood, then there's just systemic pollution, of the the full gifts that they can actually give to human society. And so as a result, you have Varnasankara, unqualified children are generated. They're not raised properly. They're not nourished properly with milk. And so then the world being devoid of leaders who can set a good example, beginning with the family, then everything then just becomes spoiled. So this is a big problem. And so as devotees, we have devotees of Radha Damodar, we have a great opportunity to continue to grow this program. of cow protection. Not only does it benefit the cows and locally the residents of the community, but the example inspires um, a community, the fiber of a community to actually be built on a very good, solid foundation. And so where cows are protected, then, so many living entities get protected, and particularly women, they get the opportunity to actually be mothers. They have a higher appreciation for this milk, giving high quality milk to their children. And in this way, they inspire their own children to actually do the same in future. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions, reflections, or contentions?
I think I have some questions, reflections, and contentions.
Yes, Prabhu. Harvo.
Let me see. First, I'd like to thank you for a stimulating and in class. And I guess a question. You have referred specifically to raw milk. You seem to be making a distinction between and other milk, and wondering why you are referring specifically to raw milk.
Well, yeah, of course, here we at Gita Nagari, we are producing pasteurized milk. And so the pasteurization process that we use, which is a batch processing, is low heat pasteurization. The nutrient profile is very close to raw milk because we're using low heat. So with ultra high heat pasteurized milk, they pump it through a series of tubes, and that's pressurized, and the heat is, I think, about 300 degrees Fahrenheit. And so that kills everything. And it basically also begins to break down some of the long chain macro and micronutrients. And so they have to add them in. Whereas with low heat pasteurized milk, you don't have to do that because the heat was fairly low, 145 degrees. And therefore it's close to the raw milk. So the idea with raw ingredients, just like even in food as well, is that the more you cook food, the more you process food, there's a loss in nutrients. So my emphasis on raw, it's not really to disparage low heat pasteurized milk, but it's more just to make the point that when something is very close to its source, then you get the best of it. So for example, this method, this way of life of Purvachiti, breastfeeding her babies, that may be seen to actually be archaic, very old system of raising children. Now you just have baby formula. You pump out, if you are producing milk, you just pump it out and you just give it to your babies in the bottle. You don't breastfeed them, etc. But the whole idea is if we just do things close to, the Bhagavatam's version, close to how this traditional way of life, then we actually get the best result. That's the idea. So you get the most nutritious milk nutritious food that hasn't been heavily processed. Similarly, even with culture as well, is that if you just stay close to how things were done, the principles of a traditional life, then you get the best result. Sorry, I didn't make that point clear. Is that an adequate answer, Prabhu?
Um, yeah, I understand your point. Um, I guess I feel inclined to offer a little clarification, at least anyone be confused. The issue of raw milk, because we don't find in Shastra or words of our acharyas references to raw milk. The milk, there's no distinction made, and the process for consuming milk, generally it's recommended that that it be pasteurized. The contemporary society, I guess, for health conscious, is frowned upon. But this is the recommended process for the consumption of milk, because there is risk of very serious disease from unpasteurized milk. There's a variety of pathogens that can be communicated by even tuberculosis is a type of tuberculosis which cows contract, which can infect human bones and does terrible harm to people. My father, he was given raw cow's milk as a child. The process is that milk is boiled 3 times. The reason it's boiled 3 times, and the boiling point is going to be roughly 212 degrees at sea level, and then boiled 3 times, because as soon as you boil the milk, it begins to boil over. You can't maintain that temperature for long without having the milk boil over. So you boil 1 time and you take it off the heat before it boils over. Then you put it back on the heat, you boil it again till it nearly boils over, then you take it off the heat, and then a 3rd time. So the purpose is to maintain the temperature for a particular period of time sufficiently long to ensure pasteurization. Opposed to pasteurization is an important process. If there is some diminishing of the quantity or quality of the nutrients, as far as Shastra and our acharyas are concerned, that is not an trade-off for the safety of pasteurized milk. So just wanted to add that. What else do I have here? Mentioning the percentage of nutrients in milk as a percentage of the daily amount required, which I'm assuming is going to be for adults. And of course, for a child, it's going to, the percentage is going to be 100%.
Yeah.
Right, because a child
Yeah.
can live exclusively on milk, and actually, these numbers are, we could argue the accuracy of these numbers, because a human being can actually live very healthy life on milk exclusively. My own diet consists of 2 cups of milk in the evening. And apart from that, once in the day, I have popper boiled in water with a little broccoli added to it and some sesame tahini. The bulk of my nutrients really are coming exclusively from milk, and that works well for me. Our acharyas, some of them, 6 Goswamis, even less. They the essence of milk, the butter, they would live on just a pat of butter once in 2 days. So the nutritional content of milk is quite concentrated, and depending upon how physically active you are, it's sufficient to sustain an adult human body, even in relatively small amounts. Say motherly affection is, one could give a class or 2 on that topic alone. Of course, in Kali Yuga, these human beings degrade across the board, and motherly affection is one of the important aspects of human character that takes a terrible hit. Nowadays, of course, mothers, for the sake of their sense gratification, they're prepared to kill their children before they're even born. Yeah, of course, there are all kinds of extenuating circumstances, and one can rationalize in a whole bunch of ways. But the bottom line is that a human life is taken, and it's very unfortunate. But the nurturing quality of mothers, it's supposed to be inherently a quality of women in general, is greatly valued. It's one of the things that is most praiseworthy or meritorious in women: their compassion and their natural inclination to provide loving care to others. Unfortunately, in Kali Yuga, this quality diminishes dramatically. Now, have no particular inclination to do these things. They may hire someone else to provide care for their child. Their lordships have appeared. Jai Shri Shri Radha Damodar. I'll end here. Thank you, Prabhu. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for your addition. Hare Krishna. Granth Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande.